Hello, students or parents or anyone else who might have found this. Welcome to Early Childhood Intro Day. I am providing some video overviews from class notes to help people understand a little bit more of human development. This is from my Maryville University Psychology 254 Lifespan Development course, and we're glad to have you with me today talking about early childhood development. So, a few notes for students that you might want to review. They are in your Canvas page. Don't worry about it this second. I'm going to skip through those slides. All right, today I want to talk about stages and theories. So in our course, we talk a lot about the 3 domains of development. For those of you out there who maybe have not seen any of my videos or been to lectures, we think about development as occurring in 3 main areas: social, emotional, cognitive, and physical, but I am most concerned about where these things intersect and come together. So my students are going to know a lot about this. We've talked about it at every stage, and early childhood, this isn't going to end. In early childhood, the focus of what we see happening is the brain is changing and maturing along with the body. And as these things come together, a process called myelinization occurs. And myelinization means that the brain starts thinking faster. It becomes more efficient. Myelin is a protein coating that goes on the neuron axon. And all you need to know about that is it means that your brain can more quickly send a message. And we know that in early childhood, we don't have as many neurons, what we call proliferating or growing or developing, but what we have is neurons that have been cut back to the ones we need, they have been pruned to the ones we need, and then they're getting faster and they're getting better. And so as we think about that, we can think about these different realms. So in the physical realm, a child in early childhood goes from, at age 2, being a toddler, not fully developed language, not fully coordinated, to at age 5, 6, 7, 8, being able to run, jump, throw a baseball, play soccer, all those things in a very coordinated manner. We also know that for a child maybe who has a lot of practice with music could start to play the piano and proficiently. That's really complex fine motor skills. We know a child who has an area of interest in art might be able to draw very well. And again, this is going to depend on your environment. So what contextually you're doing in your household, in your school, in your family, in your neighborhood, in your community will help to define which of those neuron pathways myelinate and which ones you became very coordinated and efficient at. Same thing with thinking or cognitive thinking. We believe this is really what's occurring as a child moves from a very fantasy, creative, imaginative self in early childhood into the school age years, where we do a more traditional teaching method. And we believe that has to do again with those myelinization patterns. And then social emotionally, I begin to be able to both regulate my own emotions, also recognize others, and develop more complex play and relationships. And so as we talk today, as we talk about these contexts and theories, I want you to remember that the intersection this week is all about the brain changes occurring with myelinization, and that's what's driving the changes. So that is the overview of what's going on in early childhood from our domains. In class, I like students to brainstorm, what's going on with Joe and Sally here? Joe and Sally being your typical 5-year-old. What kind of things are changing and developing? I gave some examples before, but they're becoming friends. They can run and play. They're creative. They can pay attention in school. By age 5, they're starting to know ABCs and 1, 2, 3s, starting to show proficiency in number recognition. We may have children at this age who are reading and writing well. We may have others who aren't quite ready yet, and that's okay. And so again, thinking about the real differences between a 2-year-old and a 7-year-old can help give us a real picture of what's happening here in early childhood, setting this child up for success. In previous sections, when we talk about milestones, they are very specific and somewhat prescriptive. So regardless of where you live, what race, what gender you are, development occurs pretty typical, in a pretty typical order, both prenatally and in infancy. There are just certain milestones we have to hit to be on that trajectory. When we start to get to the preschool years, what we start to see again is a little bit of a divergence of typical and atypical that is very specific to where you live, what is a high value in your family or in your school or in your culture, and what kind of things would be normal. So in class, the example I like to give is a child who grows up on a farm at age 7 is likely involved in a lot of chores, heavy lifting, understanding how to care for animals, or for actually doing farming tasks, maybe even helping on the tractor, running machinery. That would be typical developmental milestones that we would see that would be both physical and developmental for a child at that age in that context. My family lives in the city. We live in an urban area. My children do not know how to do any of that. I have trouble getting them to clean out the litter box. However, my children are highly proficient in technology. We run a technology forward home. They can do a lot of things on their iPads and the computer that a child in, I don't know, a rural area or especially an indigenous area in Africa would have no exposure to. So Vygotsky would say our children are learning the tools of their culture. And those can be very specific to a family. They can expand out to a neighborhood or community, expanding out to a culture like Western American culture, and expanding even nationally or globally when we look at that ecological theory and thinking about what are skills right now in time that are different than 50 years ago. And so, again, thinking about milestones in the early childhood years is going to be very contextualized as opposed to the ones that were much more prescriptive and universal in prenatal and in infant development. All right, let's talk about our theories. This is my friend Freud. I know not everyone likes Freud. I don't mind Freud. I like to say I like to soften Freud. And his stage between ages 3 and 7 is pretty controversial. A lot of people are very uncomfortable with this stage, and the stage is called the phallic stage. And according to Freud, there are some really interesting things that happen here. You may remember the Oedipus and the Electric complex, or concepts like penis envy. That is really the far edge of Freud. But if we look at what he was talking about in his writing, he talks about that children are discovering genitals, and in particular, not just their genitals, but the differences between boys and girls. They're also developing a concept of gender identity. What does it mean to be a boy? What does it mean to be a girl? And roles. What kind of things do I do in my culture as a boy or as a girl? And how is that different from other cultures or expectations? We see that children will begin to identify or compete with the same gender parent. So I start to understand that I am a boy and my dad is a boy. And there is some evidence that children also feel closeness. Now, Freud proposed a actual sexual attraction. I think we're going to have to scale back on that, but to opposite gender parent. And so oftentimes you hear of boys at this age being called mommy's boys. And we know that actually there is some appropriate and typical developmental milestones in terms of gender development and gender identity in these preschool years that would lean toward that being a normal process. So Freud can be softened. You do not just have to talk about strange sexual tensions between opposite gender parents and children. Instead, we can talk a little bit about this as being a time where children are understanding how boys and girls are different. And that is a very important milestone for children at this age. Let's move on to our neo-Freudian Eriksen. So in Eriksen's stage, this is his third stage of development. We talk about initiative versus guilt. And so our first stage of development was trust versus mistrust. Our second stage of development was autonomy versus shame and doubt. And now we're on initiative versus guilt. And remember, these are building blocks. So I need trust, and then I need autonomy, and then I'm going to get initiative. And according to Eriksen here, what I'm trying to figure out is, can I do things? And not just can I do things well, and can I make good choices? And so we see this child in these preschool years starting to evaluate their own decision making. So am I able to play on the playground by myself? Am I able to try to draw something on my own? Am I able to help the teacher? Am I able to clean up my room or to help make dinner? And what we see is this child developing this sense of taking on new challenges and taking them on with confidence, and also with the ability to decide, is this a good thing or a bad thing? Unfortunately, what occurs for many children at this age who do not have the opportunity to do so, so either a parent who does everything for the child, that could be one option, or a parent who has such high standards that the child can never really meet them. So this is the parent who says, hey buddy, go clean up your room, and then walks in and is like, you didn't do this right, and redoes it for the child. And that message is for the child disheartening, that I can't do it right. Or for the parent who picks out every outfit for the child and doesn't let them pick it themselves if it doesn't look right, that child is ultimately learning that I can't do this. I don't do it right. I don't know how to do it right. And the third option, of course, would be neglect. None of those ending up on a positive here. On the flip side, for the child who gets this sense of initiative, we often see parents and children working together on things. So I call this collaborative tasking. So let's say a bedroom does need to get picked up. In this stage, a parent who comes alongside the child helps go through the process. Okay, first let's collect all the dirty clothes and let's put them in the basket and put them away. Okay, now let's find all the toys and let's collect them and put them in the bins where they go. Oh, now we need to fold up the blankets, and this is how you fold them, and we're going to do this together. What we find is the child will begin to develop that competence that allows them then to do these tasks on their own and develop this sense of initiative. All right, Piaget. I would like students to go into your Canvas course to look at these, but I want us to focus mainly on the topic of egocentrism. Children at this age are unable to see the world through someone else's eyes. They see the world from their own perspective and even assume that others see it from their perspective. As we look at the overarching stage for Piaget here in the pre-operational stage, we know that in the sensory motor stage, I talk a lot about object permanence. In the pre-operational stage, a lot of our issues are that children do not see things logically. They do not see things the way that adults see them, and they only see them in their own way. And this can create a lot of the conflict between parents and children, or between children and children at this age, because I am not able to do perspective taking. For those of you in my course, I encourage you to look at the videos on conservation, on representation, and irreversibility that are in the content. For those of you who might be parents or not in my class, you can actually Google and find Piagetian tasks to review. That would be very helpful. The next slide I have is a video also in the course if you're one of my students. If not, you can literally Google this again. I'd love for you to watch the Theory of Mind video to get a better idea of this egocentrism topic. All right, finally, and I'm trying to get in under 15 minutes here, we've got Vygotsky. Vygotsky's theory is always going to stay the same in terms of this idea of trying to get children into this ideal area of the zone of proximal development, where I'm able to do things on my own. And again, this ties really well over to Eriksen. I am able to show competence and initiative in this area where I'm not anxious and confused, but I'm also not bored. We want to get students or children to this point. And according to Vygotsky, in the early years, this is really happening through play, through watching others play, through joining in, and then creating play by myself. In class today, or in the next class, we will be following up and talking more about play and also discipline and how those things intersect with our theories. So here was your quick overview of early childhood, of developmental milestones and theories. This should help get you set and help support both your learning in the book and then also application. If anyone has questions, feel free to post and I will respond. And have a wonderful day as you navigate early childhood development.